Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the Open Door Wrestling Podcast, your gateway and podcast entryway into the pro wrestling multiverse. I am DJM. This is our 2021 wrap-up show, and I am joined by my co-host, who's going to have his working boots on and carry his co-host was a really bad memory, the Subtle Doctor. Subtle Doctor, let's talk about 2021.
Let's talk about 2021. And before we do that, I just want to say to everyone listening, listen if you can, subscribe if I let you. Parentheses, please subscribe, close parentheses. Yeah, we are here to do the thing. I love this stuff. I'm just going to say I'm really, really excited about this. I get really enthusiastic about lists in general. And year-end lists are just some of my favorite content to read and consume and make. So I am super pumped. I hope DJM is somewhat pumped. I know he's not. You're not the staunch supporter of these things in the way that I am. But we got to give the people what they want.
For me, I'm just bad at it. I am someone who has a hard time recalling and rewatching. So doing shows like this can often be a challenge for me. But I think I put together a solid list for everything that I think ought to be heralded for 2021. And I'm ready to get in. I'm ready to talk about it. And I will do my best to carry my end of the load, Doc. That is my vow.
Well, we can't remember everything, no one can do that, but we did our best here, folks, cobbling together some lists. I tried to keep track of the stuff I was watching over the course of the year, and kind of how I felt about it at the time. But of course, you fall off of that at some point in the spring and don't really get around to updating it again until later in the year. And then you have to go back and think about how you felt and on and on. But, so our process for these, DJM, did you actually go back and rewatch anything? Because I definitely went with my gut in terms of how I felt about all this stuff and these performers at the time I watched it. I think I'd had okay recall when it came to remembering, okay, I think I felt better about this or that or him or her than I did these other things. And I just went with that. I didn't rewatch anything. Did you?
I did not rewatch much of anything, but it really allowed me to take some time and look into research of what was happening with wrestling, reading some stories, reading some recaps, just getting an idea of how I was feeling at the time and what stuck out to me and what stood out to me and who in wrestling this year was really, really the ones that stuck in my mind the most. And I have a few honorable mentions too, but I managed to narrow them all down. And I think that we have our categories. I don't think we went too crazy. And I think we pretty much covered everything, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I love these things. So if I had my druthers, we'd have a bazillion more categories. But we have to keep this podcast relatively short. And I don't want to punish David too much. So
and everyone knows the DJM rule. I don't do these dang old 3-hour podcasts. Everyone knows that rule.
I'm going to run down really quickly our categories for you folks so you can know what to expect. We have a few where I separated these into category A, category B. And the category B awards are awards in which we have done a top 3 list. And we have a pair of category A awards in which we've put together a top 5 list. Now, my lists are in order from 5 to 1. DJM's, I believe, are mostly not in order, but there is a definitive winner. Is that correct?
Yes. For all of the categories, I did choose a definitive winner with my top 5 and one or two honorable mentions that I think deserve to be recognized.
Very good. So we don't have any worst of stuff. I mean, those can be fun when done right or when you're in the right spirit for it, but we wanted to keep this all positive. So we've got these categories. Here are the category Bs. Most improved, best angle or storyline, best individual show, and tag team of the year. And our category A awards are going to be match of the year and wrestler of the year, all inclusive. I mean, we did not separate out men and women wrestlers into their own categories. Everyone is thrown into the big whatever, that everyone's up for consideration. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get right to our first of the category B awards, most improved. We've got our top 3 here. DJM, why don't you kick us off with your list for most improved? Give us one of your runner-ups.
One of my runner-ups for most improved is someone that I took a liking to very early on. And I believe that in 2022, we will be seeing more of them kind of breaking through the glass ceiling of AEW Dark. And that's Kylan King. She's still very new to the wrestling world. She still does independence very regularly, but everything you see from her on the indies and on AEW Dark, she's very solid. She's tall and athletic and strong. And she's just someone that I'm really, really high on. Right now, one of my runner-ups for most improved is Kylan King, Doc.
That's a good pick. I should watch more of her work. You know, what I've seen in both NWA and AEW has been very solid. So I think this is a solid pick, but I haven't seen enough to know, you know, to ascertain the improvement of her work over time. But just when I've popped in and seen her stuff, I've liked it. So for me, I just also want to note quickly for this category, there's a way you could have done this in which, like, you could, I guess if your thinking was like someone like Dante Martin, who his opportunities have improved, you know what I mean? He's gotten more time, and his spot in the company may have improved. But the way I sort of took this was the in-ring work or character work or whatever, certain aspects of the performances themselves improved over the course of the year. This is how I approach this. So my first runner-up is Ty Conti. I thought that she initially, like, when she first came into the company, like, it looked pretty rough, but even from the beginning, I thought that there was promise with this person. And she, throughout the course of the year, I thought really, really stepped up her game, really took the ball and ran with it, took advantage of the opportunities she did have. I thought her work kept on improving at a really rapid pace. If the award maybe were most rapid improvement, she might win it. But I thought she was an easy number 3 for me, just because, like, she's really cemented herself as like a kind of B+, A- sort of fringe title contender in this women's division in All Elite Wrestling, where I think earlier in the year she was definitely still kind of a prelim act.
I think Ty Conti's improvement this year has been really at a rocket pace. And she seemed to go from getting signed to AEW to contending for the title in no time flat. And that's really impressive because she is a very legitimate contender for either women's title in AEW. And it gives me hope for what they're doing in the women's division because they have a lot of young and new talent there. It shows me that there's a lot of potential and talent and room to grow with the women's division in that company.
Absolutely. So who's another runner up for you?
That would be Doc. I think you'll appreciate this one.
Okay.
From New Japan Strong, the DKC.
Wow. Okay.
I love a charismatic babyface that knows how to really show fire. And every time I've tuned in to see the DKC, he just has that. He has that kind of babyface energy that at bigger crowds, maybe in Japan, if he's able to go there, he really knows how to do that. And the more I see of him, the more I feel like his in-ring is solid, which he's being trained very well. He's being coached very well. But I think he's got some of those innate things that really stuck out to me. Of the LA dojo, he was the guy that really stuck out to me the most. And I feel like wherever he ends up, I think the DKC has a future. I really do.
I'm going to have to eat some crow on this one because I remember when we talked about him a few months ago, I was kind of lukewarm on the guy. But I agree with you. I think he's improved a lot. I mean, I saw him, I can't remember what set of tapings it was. They're starting to kind of run together the series of tapings they've been doing since they've been back on the road. But at one of the more recent ones, I thought he was really quite good. Like you said, he's got that infectious personality, and the in-ring really is coming along. Yeah, big improvements for him, and I think I take back all the hesitancy I have on him. I think he definitely belongs on this New Japan Strong roster and has a key role to play. So my pick, my second most improved, is also from New Japan Strong. And it's someone who I think could have also won this award last year. But to me, he just keeps still getting better and better and better. And that is Stop the Hate, Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser.
Hey.
I love
Primetime player himself.
Well, man, listen, if I can't believe I just can't believe he's on these. Like, I mean, I can now, but if you asked me about this like 5 years ago, would Darren Young show up on your Wrestler of the Year list in any capacity? I would have laughed and said no. And I like the primetime players well enough. They were a fun kind of mid-card act, but he's so much more than that in New Japan Strong. I mean, his work ethic is just tireless, and he just cares so damn much. It is coming from every pore of him during his promos and his matches, how much he wants to be here in New Japan and how much he really values his time here in this company and kind of respects what they're about and wants to do well. And he's doing so well. Like, if my match of the year list was like maybe like top 12, top 15, his match with Tom Lawler for the Strong title would be on it. That match was fantastic. That's a definitely like go out of your way to see it. It was the main event of, I want to say, the most recent tapings in California. But again, it's really, I can't remember the show name. A Detonation, maybe? Maybe I'm not sure, but anyway, it's there. It's on the New Japan World. It was an excellent match, and it was just like the culmination of the guy's year. I mean, I just think he's so good, and I mean, like a comedy mid-card team from WWE last decade has like just adapted his body and his wrestling style to New Japan, like in a real way. That's not like any kind of I don't know, he just looks like he belongs. And so he got the runner up for my most improved.
The thing about Fred Rosser, Darren Young, is that it was always known that he was the workhorse of that tag team. I think that in a place like New Japan, that's a good spot for him, where in the other company, you have to have a bit more of an outward, extroverted personality, which is where his tag team partner, Titus O'Neil, always succeeded. Whereas Darren Young was the workhorse. In the case of New Japan Strong, that plays to his strengths, where he's able to show his effort and his strength and his passion and his spirit in the ring, because that's where it matters the most in this company. And knowing that, it does not surprise me that he's thriving the way that he is.
I will say, can I say this about
it really doesn't.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say this about his personality. You know, he definitely, yes, like the in-ring is there, it's improved. He's so solid, so good. But like, what really put him over the top for me again is that feud with Lawler. Like, his promos were just incredible. Like, there was a match where I believe he and Rocky Romero lost to Team Filthy in a tag match, and Lawler cut Darren Young cut Rosser's hair, and like backstage, he was believably irate. Not like, oh, woe is me, my wrestler hair is gone. He was screaming, cursing, saying, "I'm going to ask the boys where you live, Lawler, and I'm coming to your house." Like, it was awesome. So I think he's got all the tools, really. He's such a blast to watch.
And I'm very happy for him, because in the other company, he did kind of flounder. And I'm really glad that he's found his footing. If he makes it over to New Japan proper in 2022, I will be overjoyed for him, because it would really show that just because you don't make it in the Stanford Supermax, that your wrestling career isn't over. So I'm big time rooting for Fred Rosser. Big time.
Get him in the cup. All right, who's your number one? Who is the winner of the most improved wrestler 2021?
My most improved might be controversial, but it's someone that I think in recent years, maybe in the last year or two, developed a bit of a bad rap, but also had some injury issues. But they have really come along in the second half of 2021. Some really good feuds, some really good angles, and has really shown that they were every bit the charismatic personality that I always believed them to be. My most improved of 2021 is Chelsea Green.
Wow.
I've always really liked her.
Yeah.
I think she had what might have been a breakthrough performance at All In way back when. And then she got signed to NXT, but that didn't work out because she had injury issues. She broke her wrist a couple of times and had shoulder issues and other things. But after getting let go, she's returned to Impact. She's been in the NWA, and she's kind of been everywhere. And she's also been really, really good. She's had a really good angle with her husband, Matt Cardona, in GCW. Things are going really well with her in Impact. And I think that she always had the charisma and always had the personality. And I think that now that she's healthy, her in-ring is coming back around. And I think she's really shown it. So, yeah, Chelsea Green, someone that I always believed in. I think she's realizing her potential.
Where do you think she did her best work this year?
Probably the NWA, with Impact right there.
Okay.
Though I will give her a ton of credit for going to GCW. I give her a ton of credit for going there and doing that, especially with that crowd, with
Yes.
how much they hate her husband. Yeah, that's a lot. That's respect.
Well, very good. Again, someone who, has landed on their feet quite nicely after parting ways with Connecticut. My most improved is sort of the anti-NBA Coach of the Year kind of way of awarding this. You're familiar with this, DJM. NBA Coach of the Year is given to someone who last year the team was bad, this year it's good. My most improved has been good, but I think this year he really took the step from good to great in the ring, and that is Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. I think promo-wise, he has been about the same at a very high standard. This year, he did not have the huge missteps that I thought last year. Like the whole presidential campaign angle really brought down his year for me. I thought that was very bad. Though I ended up quite liking the match with Jon Moxley that came out of that, but just the build-up I thought was pretty bleh, mid, as he would say, right? But this year, the promo work hasn't really faltered. He hasn't had that big kind of rough angle, at least that I remember. And the in-ring has gotten just even better than it was. And it was fine in 2020, but it's very good this year. The match with Darby being, I think, the peak of it. He hasn't had a ton of chances to show it off. So maybe that's like the chink in the armor of my pick that, a lot of people are getting way more reps and showing way more improvement. But I mean, to me, it's clear that like he studies a lot and really puts a lot of thought into each and every match, and each and every match he has on AEW ends up feeling like an event, pretty special. And I thought he's just gotten better and better each time. And again, I think the match with Darby is one of the best matches in AEW this year.
No argument. I think that for me, it was the match with Cody. And even to a degree, his match with Jon Moxley for the world title that convinced me that, okay, MJF is more than just a good promo. He's got something in the ring. When the bell rings, he can hold his own. But I really have no argument. That's a good choice. I think, as much as I'm not looking forward to him being world champion, I think it's pretty much an inevitability at this point.
Yeah. And this year he's like the thing I think that separates a lot of his great work this year from you are totally right that like the Cody match was awesome. The Moxley match, awesome. Very good. I thought those were great matches. But I feel like he's taking more of a leadership role, like kind of calling the matches and in ring. You know what I mean? Like you can't sort of say, oh, he was in there with Mox, Mox carried him to that good match or whatever. Like there's none of that to hide behind. Like, because he's wrestling Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin, who are very good and everything, but like they don't have those towering reputations that the other guys do. And even when he was in there with someone with towering reputation like Jericho, I mean, I mostly enjoyed the Pinnacle Inner Circle matches and his part in them. So yeah, I thought he's had a really good year. Are you ready to move on to the next award?
I think so. I think I've got everything here in my notepad, I think. Yes.
All right. Well, notepads, notebooks.
Doc, actually,
yep.
I'll just say this. For individual shows, there really was only one for me. There really was only one.
Okay. Well, do you want to do that one next? We can do that one next.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get that knocked out then. We'll we'll forget the order. We'll come back to best angle after we do best individual show. So what I will do then is, so you have one, I have three. I'll give you my two runners up. I'll give you 3 and 2, and then I'll toss over to you for your show of the year, and then I'll give mine. My third best individual show of the year was AEW Winter is Coming. I really loved this show. I thought everything they did hit really well. I was just incredibly satisfied after went off the air. I mean, the Hangman, Bryan Danielson, 1 hour draw being like the crown jewel of the show. I mean, that was just an incredible, unforgettable match, like a legendary TV match. I think this was going to live on in the memory for a while. But that wasn't all the show had. I thought the show, the rest of it, still was really, really good. So Winter is Coming, number 3. Number 2, just missing out on the top award, was Pro Wrestling Noah's N1 Final.
Yes.
From this October. I love Pro Wrestling Noah, DJM. I love it so much. I love what it is.
Doc.
Yes?
Are we going to go ahead and say that when it comes to the Open Door Wrestling podcast, is Pro Wrestling Noah our favorite promotion? Are we saying that?
I think we're saying that. I think at this point in time, it's. I think
this is a Noah guy podcast. I think we're Noah guys.
We're Noah guys for sure. The no longer the green mat. What would we call it? The green apron, the green outline,
emerald apron.
Yes, the emerald apron. No, but this this promotion has really. Like, I've really given myself over to it. I mean, last year, even in late 19, when I was following it, I was really only keeping up with the heavyweight title main event scene. And this year, I've immersed myself in the undercard and in the rest of the titles, and it has been very rewarding. I have felt like the investment and kind of emotion that I've put into it has been nothing but reciprocated, and there's just so much that the company has to offer, and I love it. But this is not promotion of the year. I'm only going to talk about the N1 final show, which I thought was just absolutely tremendous. Really, the things that stick out from this are the semifinals and the final. It was, you had Nakajima beating Fuminori Abe. No, not Fuminori Abe. I'm sorry. Masakatsu Funaki. Why did I think Fuminori Abe? He's not even old. The M's Alliance member, Masakatsu Funaki. In an excellent contest. And you had Kano and Kaito Kiyomiya continuing their rivalry. And then that culminated in one of the best matches of this year, or I don't know, recent vintage, I think, especially for Noah. Nakajima versus Kano for the N1 trophy. And we're going to talk about that match later for sure. But that was just missed out on my show of the year. It was number 2. So for you, what was your best individual show this year?
My best individual show of the year was a show that I think hit all of the points it needed to. I really like American Pro Wrestling when it is at its absolute best. When American Pro Wrestling is done at its highest level, I think it is absolutely spectacular. And I watched a show where I felt like that happened, and I got to see that. And it was AEW All Out. And I feel like this show was exactly what AEW was meant to be. It had varying genres of professional wrestling. All of the work, for the most part, was high quality. It had a hot opening match with a storyline behind it. It had a cameo from Satoshi Kojima.
Hmm.
It had some really good women's wrestling. It had what will be my match of the year.
Oh no,
Spoilers. Yes.
you're spoiling.
Yeah, that's a spoiler. This did have my match of the year.
Okay.
But and the upper card of the show was pretty solid too. Even the comedy match was placed perfectly where it needed to be to give people a cool down before the main event world championship match. And even that match and its post match events with the debuts that it had, this entire show was just maybe one of the best American pro wrestling shows that I can remember.
Those debuts are going to really give this show a long tail, I feel like, in our memories. I mean, those were just incredibly memorable and fantastic wrestling. You know, I think AEW had a great year on pay-per-view. You know, previous years were a little bit spotty, but I thought this year they really brought it. And no argument here. All Out was a fantastic show. It did not win my show of the year, but another AEW pay-per-view did, and that was Full Gear from November. And I think, you know, we talked about this on the show, I believe, but where the debuts of All Out were kind of its highest highs, apart from this one match that you're talking about, that is your match of the year. I think this show was better bell to bell the whole way through, top to bottom. I just nothing but bangers on this card. Like MJF Darby Allin opener, banger, incredible match. Bryan Danielson versus Miro, maybe even better, stone cold banger. Britt Baker versus Ty Conti, fantastic, really hard hitting. I think people need to rewatch that match. It doesn't get the credit it deserves. CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston, stone cold banger, amazing. The two plunder matches. Look, I'm not a big plunder match guy, really. Like the dudes hitting each other with shit. Like I'm kind of over it in a lot of ways, but like they did two of them and they did them really well. Like the Super Click Jurassic Express one was sufficiently brutal to be interesting, and then the Inner Circle versus American Top Team was just a dumb comedy, like emotional come down after the Punk Kingston match, perfectly placed on the card. I thought it was a lot of fun.
With the cameo from Baron von Raschke.
Yes, right. I forgot about that. Oh, Baron von Raschke. It makes me wonder.
Hearing Jim Ross call the Iron Claw, that was special.
It makes me wonder who are they just going to get old dudes to be the judges for the world title match coming up? Will it just be three more Baron von Raschkes? Can't wait to find out. And of course, like Hangman and Kenny for the world title, just perfect cherry on top of just a great show. And I thought was AEW's best show and my favorite show of the year.
No issue with it. I think a lot of people have been saying it's either All Out or Full Gear, and we covered both. We essentially covered both.
Yes, AEW, breaking news, does really good pay-per-views now.
Yep.
So best angle or storyline, I'm really interested to see what your picks are. You know, this is one where I feel like we could either be very different or very similar. So, what is your best angle or story? No, I'm sorry, your runner-up. One of your two runners-up for best angle or storyline.
I think that this might be a strange choice, but can I call the future of Ring of Honor a storyline?
You know what? I'll allow it.
Okay. Ring of Honor is very near and dear to my heart. I made sure to put in a concerted effort to follow them through 2021 because of the conclusion that it met at Final Battle. And I am intrigued as to what the future holds for the wrestling promotion that brought me back to loving professional wrestling. I'm hoping there's a future. I hope that there is. Sincerely. That's my second runner-up.
I share your hope. I share your hope for Ring of Honor's continued existence and perhaps once again prosperity. My number 3 is this is going back a ways to early in the year, but the build for Jon Moxley's world title rematch with Kenny Omega that led to it becoming an exploding barbed wire death match. Now, people are going to, I think, remember this whole thing not as well as it deserves to be remembered because of the poor execution of its final moment with the timed explosion. But I thought this storyline, which, it began in late 2020, but like this was the culmination of it. And, I think it had a ton of interest going in. I mean, people were really into the exploding barbed wire deathmatch idea. Like right after it happened, this the buy not buy rate is the wrong word, but the pay-per-view buy number was the highest AW had ever had, I believe. And that has since, of course, been dwarfed by other shows this year with their own good angles, and I'm sure we'll get to those. But I thought this one was really memorable and interesting, and even the things that happened during the match, Eddie Kingston's face turn was part of this whole thing, and that has been nothing but a joy throughout this year. So yeah, I'm going Kenny Mox exploding barbed wire death match.
I think everything about that, except for the ending, was really, really good.
Yes.
And they even found a way to bounce back from the ending, blaming Impact. I think that was a really good way to think on the fly.
Very funny. Very funny. Oh my gosh. All right. Second runner-up from you.
The Redeemer, Miro.
Okay.
There is something about this character that I just find so fascinating. He is a Templar knight. He has an extremely hot double-jointed wife who he fights for victory for so he can go home honorably and enjoy that. But also losing the TNT title has sent him down this path of madness that is just... It's a really good character in a wrestling company that is very grounded. And having a character like this, and by the way, Miro is doing a great job at it. The promos that he's doing, the matches that he had as TNT champion, and what they're looking for him to do afterwards, we'll see. But I think Miro's run as the Redeemer, especially coming out of being the best man, I think that has all really turned around for him. And I think that this is the Miro that people expected. And it, to this point, culminated with him getting very close to challenging for the world championship. And I have said that in 2022, I expect to see Hangman Page versus Miro for the world title. And I think it will be outstanding. And I believe in the Redeemer.
No, this is great. I love Miro a lot. I am sad that I'm guessing he's injured. And that's why
they have talked about him having neck issues, so it's possible.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I mean, because he hasn't worked on TV in ages, but we've got a ton of great video packages from him, like you said, really not just establishing the character, but like giving us character development over the weeks and they've been really fun to watch. I think he's got a good grasp of who he is. Surprisingly, though, for me, I think my favorite Miro moment, like truly peak Miro, I think, was when Chucky T was the butler. Like, and he would just like refer to him as Charles, and just something about Miro, like, clasping
Miro has always had really good comedic timing.
It's like, it was just, you just clasp him on the back and say, Charles, I'll teach you how to be a man. It was very good. I enjoyed that a lot. And, I think I could get pegged for being like the stodgier one of us when it comes to wrestling fun and goofiness. But there were parts of Gamer Miro I didn't like, but there were parts that I really, really did like. And that was one of them. But getting back to what you said, I think this is a great, great path for him. And yeah, I mean, he's got to be top title contender in 2022. I absolutely see that for sure. My number 2 here, probably a lot of people would put this as their number 1, but I have something different. My runner-up for the best angle of this year was the return of CM Punk to AEW. I thought this was played so well. I mean, at the time, everyone was arguing, like, okay, we know he's coming. Why don't you just announce it? Why don't you draw a big house? Why don't you take advantage of it and get media coverage, But like Khan and everyone involved here, Punk, they understood actually that the sort of 95% sure, but maybe not, of not telling anybody that Punk was coming, but heavily alluding to it. Like, by doing that, they could sell out the United Center and get their biggest pay-per-view buy that they've ever had. Like, and the hints they would drop. I mean, like, the Young Bucks were walking backstage one time, and Tony Khan was sitting there at a computer, and above him, just on like a piece of printer paper, was the word coach. And that's just always been CM Punk's Twitter display name. Just dumb stuff like that. Like, and Darby, of course, saying like, I want to fight the best in the world. Like, all these things where it's like, okay, he's coming. But we've been disappointed enough to have the doubt, right? Like, we've been teased as wrestling fans about stuff. So when Cult of Personality hit, that was another thing. We didn't know what music was he going to have, his Ring of Honor music. But when Cult of Personality hit in Chicago, and he got to have that entrance on Rampage, it was just incredible, and it was just so well done from an angle perspective. And of course, they did great business out of it. But I love this, and I'm really looking forward to what's up for him in the new year for sure.
So, Doc, do I really even have to say what my favorite angle of the year is? I don't think it would really be a surprise to anybody.
Okay. Is it
what?
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. You know what it is.
Okay. Okay. Just say it.
It is the never-ending saga of the Codyverse.
Oh. You know what? You did have to say it. I did not think this is what you're going to pick. Okay.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Oh, what do you have in mind? What do you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going Hangman.
No. Yes, it's the Codyverse. The Codyverse. I think that Cody Rhodes has stumbled upon something so fascinating and so strange that smart, savvy internet wrestling fans are all just so wrapped up in one way or another. And now I'm starting. Yes, to where not even the most diehard, terminally online wrestling fans, myself included, really have a grasp of what's going on. And Cody himself, for reasons valid and otherwise, is so polarizing. And it has just become the most enthralling story in wrestling right now. And it's, to me, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And at the center of it all is a guy who says his two biggest influences are Sting and Dusty Rhodes, two guys that are all about masters of wrestling psychology. And Arn Anderson is involved. And there's just so much happening that it really does feel like all of this is very Galaxy Brain, and I absolutely love it. Just give me more Cody. And you know what, Doc? Now I'm starting to see more and more people starting to come back around on Cody, and that they're getting a kick out of it. Like when he pulled the golden shovel from underneath the ring and talked
Yes.
about leaning into it.
Yes.
And then when he was doing an interview on Dynamite and where he took a step towards the heel tunnel and then turned around, oh, that was so good. Because everybody lost their minds over it. Because, and most importantly, when he does the double underhook and it looks like he's going to do one move and then he does another, oh, God, that's so good. It's so good.
Man, that I didn't even think about that. And now you've shown me another layer.
They called me a madman, Doc.
Oh, come on. Come on.
No. No, I'm kidding.
People that deny, like, I don't understand.
But I have had friends that hated Cody, but then I was like, guys, you just have to give it some time and see what's going on. And then as time has went on, they've come back to me and were like, David, you were right. This is brilliant. Cody's brilliant. And this is happening, and I'm along for the ride. And it's like, yes, this is so good. It's so exciting. We don't know where this is going, and it's great. And now that Cody is TNT champion again, it just adds on to it. And I'm loving all things Cody Rhodes.
And this is the first 2-time champion in for any title.
3-time,
right?
3-time.
Oh God, you're right. Oh, I forgot. That's right. He traded it with Brody Lee. God, I feel like an idiot for forgetting that. Yes, 3-time TNT champ. Yeah, very curious where that's going. And listen, like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I could see why, like, people might have got off the Cody train at some point this year, but, like, I feel like in 2019 and 2020, I mean, he did so much undisputedly great work for the company, but and now, like you say, he's entering this really interesting period. He's been compared to Cena by people, but I think, unlike Cena, I think he is embracing this and using this for his benefit, and is going to, like, take this places. This being, like, the fan response and reaction, and I think Cena just didn't want to mess with it. He didn't care. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. He was not interested in changing his character or presentation. But I think, things could happen in that department with Cody. I mean, who knows? Anything is on the table, and I think he's very aware of the reaction and very aware of how he comes across and very calculating. And so, yeah, very, very intriguing. This is I think this is a good pick. I think this is a very good pick. I gave away my pick though. My pick is that the Hangman Page storyline came to an end. We got to see the conclusion, and the valiant babyface who, fought like hell after being down on his luck and depressed and alone. He picked himself up and had some help from his friends and got the moxie to come back and give it another go, and he friggin' did it. He got the chip, and then he got the title. And it was great. It was a great. I said at the time that it was like maybe lacking just a little bit of emotion for me that I thought it would provide, and that's still the case. But that doesn't mean it wasn't great, and that doesn't mean this wasn't like the best storyline in wrestling this year. It's been a long journey. It's been longer than this year, but everything that happened with his character this year was super, super fascinating. And even just seeing that the pandemic did not cool him off, because he was really starting to catch fire right when crowds had to go away. And so to see that everyone had continued to pay attention and had continued to invest in him emotionally was really satisfying. So yeah, Hangman title win. Best angle of the year for me.
It's a great pick. Absolutely terrific pick. And it reached a satisfying conclusion. And I think that a lot of wrestling fans feel like if something is predictable, that means it's not quite as good. But Hangman had to win the title eventually. This storyline had to reach its natural conclusion, and that was Hangman Adam Page conquering his demons and beating Kenny Omega. That eventually had to happen. Otherwise, to make a comparison, he would have ended up like Sami Zayn, just lost in the wilderness until he's turned heel. And I think everything's better for it. I think Hangman's better for it. I don't think this is necessarily the end of the story for him. I think that was the end of one chapter. And the chapter of what Hangman will do as the world champion is a most intriguing one. And the best thing you can say about the end of one chapter of a story is that it makes you really excited for the next one. And I'm really excited for Hangman's title reign.
Oh, man.
And so far it has delivered.
So I totally agree. I think it's going to be great. Like, gosh, like people that are like, well, what now? It's like, well, I mean,
he defends the title.
He has a great title. Like the company has shown that it gives forethought and has plans and writes long-term stories. So
what do you mean, have what now?
Come on.
What do you mean, what now? He's the champion. He defends the title as the world champion, guys.
Come on. If we were doing a prediction section of this, my wild prediction for part of what his 2022 will entail, and perhaps this will be when he's lost the title, perhaps not, but I think the Hangman will again interweave with the Elite, because I think the Elite and the former Undisputed Era are going to have some issues and are going to break up. And I think at some point, hopefully anyway, one Kenny Omega will return. And I mean, I think what people want to see is another Kenny versus Hangman. But what if we get Kenny and Hangman again, and the best tag team ever gets back together and have more matches?
I would watch Kenny and Hangman versus Red Dragon.
Hell yeah, you would. Everyone would.
Yeah, I watched that.
That would own. Especially with a really good build, and we got some tension, only like the roles are reversed, and it's like Kenny is the sort of doubtful one. He's not in the place of power. He's like, can I really do this? Can I make my comeback? And Adam is the confident one. Be great. It'd be so good.
Yeah. See, there's plenty to do with Adam Page as world champion. Don't just think about how a guy has to chase the title. There's more to wrestling than that, people. There's more to wrestling than that. Okay. Those are our angles of the year, Doc.
Yes.
So let's move on.
We're going to move on to our final category B, Tag Team of the Year. DJM, who was one of your runner-ups for Tag Team of the Year?
The Young Bucks.
Very good.
I don't think I really need to
I mean, what do you
elaborate any more than that.
Just one of the best tag teams, if not the best tag team of all time.
Right. And everyone they were in the ring with elevated their game.
My pick is I think this is the first category we've done where each of my picks is from a different promotion. So my number 3 pick is New Japan Pro Wrestling's Dangerous Tekkers.
My number 2.
Very good. Okay. So, well, then quickly, I'll just say a piece and then you can talk about them. And I think they've been like the shining light in that division for me this year, honestly, especially after, once the Tanahashi Kota Ibushi partnership kind of dissolved really abruptly, I felt. Dangerous T was like the thing. I mean, because I'm a little burnt out on a lot of the other tag teams that usually kind of hold those belts. But these guys are still fresh enough and they're still excellent workers. And a lot of the matches they had to main event a lot of shows this year with the way that New Japan, scheduled their shows. They did a lot of shows, a ton of tapings to try to recoup as much ticket revenue as they could. And these guys were on top and had to wrestle like 30, 35-minute matches. And, even when they were in the ring with people that I had been kind of met on, I thought the matches really, really delivered. I enjoyed their stuff with GOD. I enjoyed their stuff with LIJ. And I just thought, that they didn't really give a bad performance and made me not skip tag team title matches in New Japan. So yeah, Dangerous Tekkers.
Dangerous Tekkers with an honorable mention to Finn Juice. What could have been for Finn Juice?
Impact's tag team of the year, Finn Juice.
Yeah, no argument. Okay, so I said the Young Bucks, I said Dangerous Tekkers as my number 2. So I guess that I will just give my number 1 tag team. And I think I've pretty much given away my match of the year already. So I'll give away my tag team of the year. Penta and Rey Fenix, the Lucha Brothers. Because I think where they succeed over the Young Bucks is in presentation. I think that they bring a little bit more oomph to their presentation. Match quality, great. Opponents, great. But I think their presentation with Alex Abrahantes as their manager that already lifts Penta and Phoenix over the top really just puts the cherry on top. They had some really cool entrances this year. They had, I think Mikey Ruckus did their entrance once for one of their matches, and they change up their gear. Just everything that you would want in a big time tag team. I believe that the Lucha Brothers did with just a little bit more conviction than the Young Bucks. So I'm giving it to the Lucha Brothers.
I will have something to say about the Lucha Brothers in just a moment. Quickly, my number 2 team is Aussie Open. I thought, that they kind of weren't on a lot of tapings for a certain part of the year because of COVID. But when they did make tape, it was really phenomenal, especially their stuff in Rev Pro. It's talk about what could have been, what could have been if they could have gotten over to New Japan. I know New Japan wants them. I'm sure that will happen eventually, and they will infuse even more life into the tag division. But holy cow, man, their stuff in Rev Pro was incredible. Like, when they won the titles from Destination Everywhere. Is it Anywhere or Everywhere? I think it's Everywhere. Destination Everywhere. No, it must be Anywhere. Anyway, Michael Oku and Connor Mills.
Ruby Soho. No, sorry.
Yeah, right, right. Um, but anyway, when Aussie Open beat them for the belts, like that match is one of the best tag team matches that happened this year. I like really, really reminded me of like vintage black and gold NXT takeover tag title matches. Just bombs being thrown, a million kickouts, crowd super into it, living and dying with every near fall. And they brought a lot of great energy, even as a heel tag team. Whereas I think the Bucks working heel for me, like they kind of scaled down the energy of their in ring a little bit, and Aussie Open just revved up the intensity. But my number one is the Lucha Brothers, also because
Hey,
you can't really deny them this year. It was, even if they didn't win the titles, they would have been my tag team of the year. But that title win was amazing. They had a lot of that was a feather in their cap, that like they had that just phenomenal cage match in addition to their sort of usual high flying acrobatic style of stuff. And like you, I love their presentation. I thought I was tired of these guys, but like they just keep on doing new things and interesting things and adding these layers and wrinkles. And they're just masters of like getting the crowd pumped and getting us into it, the TV crowd and the live crowd. They're just the most crowd pleasing tag team I've seen in quite some time. And they're phenomenal. And I keep thinking, they should break these guys up, because like either of these guys could be great with singles, and they could, but like
they could
I
do
don't
them like the
know.
New Day, where they don't break them up. They're just really good singles
They just
guys.
have the singles runs also. For sure. For sure. Absolutely they could.
Like Congo and not like Congo.
Yeah, hey, there you go. They totally could. I guess it's not a prerequisite, right? And I don't want to lose them together because I think it's just too special. So yeah, Runaway number one for me. Like a massive distance between one and the rest.
And I will give one honorable mention. I'm gonna peek the real forbidden door open just for a second,
American Top Team.
and
Dan Lambert plus.
and and give an honorable mention, and maybe someday in an alternate universe, to Jimmy and Jay Uso. That's it. We're closing the door. We're closing the door. That's it.
Just slam, close the door. Very good. All right, so thus concludes our category B awards. Now we're going to category A, in which we have a top 5. And these awards are the biggies, match of the year, and wrestler of the year. Do you want to go match of the year first and then wrestler? That's the way I have it in the outline, but we could do either one.
You pick.
I think let's do that. Let's go match of the year, and then let's do wrestler of the year.
Okay,
All right,
good.
so what is your number 5 match of the year?
My number 5 match of the year is CM Punk versus Darby Allin. I believe this was a really well worked match. I think Darby Allin might be one of the best in ring performers in AEW. And CM Punk, for a 7-year layoff, looked like he had not lost a step. And to me, that was damn impressive.
Allen is like such a sneaky, like fringe wrestler of the year candidate for me. If I had a top 10, he'd be on there, no doubt. Like toward the sort of middle-ish portion. Like he really did have a great year. Totally agree with you. And Punk is Punk, and Punk is back. That was a great match. My number 5 is a Stardom match, but it is not the one that everyone else probably has on their list. That match that everyone has is Sayuri versus Utami Hayashishita for the red belt. And that was at like in June. I forget the name of that show, but it was like the Cinderella something or other, the big June show that actually has English commentary from our boy Stuart Fulton. on Stardom World. And that match was really great. I love that it kind of broke through the wrestling bubble and had other people like talking about Joshi that normally don't. Broke through the Joshi bubble, I should say, to the more general wrestling fan kind of spaces. But that match didn't make my list. It probably would if we had a top 10, but I liked a lot more the I shouldn't say a lot more. I just liked more. The 5-star Grand Prix final of the aforementioned Syuri versus Doc Fave Momo Watanabe. And I thought everything like the Utami match had, this match had, and more. You know, it didn't do the draw and restart. It didn't have that aspect to it, but like that's fine with me. Like I was just on the edge of my seat. I thought I love Momo so much, and I thought she was going to win this tournament, man. This is a real fan pick for me. But I really, really wanted to see her win this and get a shot at one of the titles again. She's been out of the title picture way too long. Sometimes really question what they're doing with her. I think she's like one of the best, if not the best, in that company, even with all the new additions that have come in since the acquisition by Bushiroad. Like this match was so hard hitting, and so like these ladies gave everything. This was my favorite women's match of the year, and just really lived up to what I think your big G1 style final should be.
Awesome. I've really got to start watching some Joshi. I'm going to work on that.
Stardom's real good. Stardom is in a good place.
Yeah, I keep hearing that. I keep hearing it. My next match will be from March of this year. It was a match that people did not have high expectations for, but then it absolutely blew them away. And that was Arcade Anarchy. The Best Friends versus Miro, Kip Sabian, and it was the Best Friends and Miro and Kip Sabian.
Yes.
Where we had all sorts of plunder, if you will. The return of Chris Statlander, and just a good old-fashioned blow-away wrestling brawl with a modern flavor to it. And I just had more fun with this than most matches. I was sufficiently sports entertained. It had athleticism, it had violence, it had fun, it had comedy, it had everything that you could hope for in a pro wrestling match. And it absolutely shattered everyone's expectations, except yours truly, who has been telling people that Chuck Taylor is really good for like 15 years. Chuck Taylor's really good, by the way. And yeah, Arcade Anarchy. That one really stuck with me. It really, really did.
That match was a lot of fun. I forgot actually how much fun it was until you're talking about it. Chuck Taylor does rule. People need to just understand that, like, his tope rules. He's one of the, like, sneakily one of the better plunder wrestlers in AEW, in fact. If not just kind of America. Yeah, he's awesome. He's really over when I go to shows and he's there. And Trent, I almost put the return of Trent as one of the best angles of the year. Maybe if we had a top 5, it would have snuck on there. Because I love the Best Friends. They're fantastic. My number 4 is probably higher on many people's lists, but the field was so strong that it wound up as my number 4. And that is from December the 15th, Winter is Coming. Hangman Adam Page versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW title, 60-minute draw. This match was, you know, we have talked about it extensively on this program. You know, it had such good like pace for an hour-long match. It flew by. felt like it lasted only a third of the time. They never ran out of ideas. Danielson is just so good. He carried most of that match, and I mean, Hangman certainly played his part. I mean, he was great, but Danielson had to do a lot of the heavy lifting character wise and work from the top as the heel, and he was just so good. I mean, you talked about like seeing his title run, Hangman, and what we get. We get this Bryan Danielson series, and it's already just been incredible. Like, and we got this match on TV for free, which is ridiculous. And the finish was awesome. Like, everything about it was just so great and so memorable. And the AEW title is a worthy title to be sure, but like I think Tony Schiavone said it on broadcast, like, matches like this really do elevate it, and I think that was totally the case here.
The only reason I did not put this on my top 5 is because I knew you would.
Fair enough.
I knew you'd talk about it.
You hate Bryan Danielson.
Right. He's definitely not my wrestler of the year. No, he definitely isn't. Yeah, you said it all. The only reason I didn't put this in my top 5 is because I knew you would, and you said it all perfectly. My next match, Doc, is a match that I believe you recommended to me because I'd missed it, and I saw a lot of other wrestling fans talk about it. And let me see if I remember if this was from the right show. I believe this one was from the New Japan Power Struggle, and this was the match between Zack Sabre Jr. and Shingo Takagi.
Ah, yes.
Mm-hmm. So this match was one that I think you recommended to me.
Okay.
And sorry?
No, I was sorry. I was just agreeing with you, just kind of saying, okay, my bad. Okay. I threw you off.
I believe you and a few others recommended this match to me. I've always really liked Shingo. I still like Zack Sabre Jr. a lot. I'm glad he's doing Dangerous Tekkers now because I thought that he needed something to fresh him up a little bit. But this match was really good because it was a clash of styles that worked really, really well. Both of these guys are really, really good at adapting to their opponent. And this ended up being really strong. And the story was that Zack Sabre Jr. had actually beaten Takagi before. And he wanted a title match, and he got it. And this was an absolute 30-minute banger. And Takagi, who is in my list of wrestlers of the year, got the win. And this would be one from New Japan Power Struggle that I think everyone should go back and check out.
Absolutely. Both of their matches. Like the first one you were talking about was in, I want to say night 2, or wait, that'll be night 3 of the G1. But both of them are really good. And you said it right that it's such a cool clash of styles, and they have really good chemistry. So excellent match. Great pick. My number 3 is from Pro Wrestling Noah, October the 3rd, the N1 final match between Katsuhiko Nakajima and Kano. Winner take all, the trophy, the title shot at the then champion Marufuji. And these guys had already competed in not short semifinal matches earlier in the evening, but holy shit, they beat the hell out of each other. And you're going to have like matches in other promotions that like, you have barbed wire and you have blood and you have tables and you have fire on tables and other things like that. But these matches always sort of ring more brutal to me because they are just kicking the shit out of each other. And this was such a firecracker of a match. Like, they really did beat each other black and blue, all for this prize. I mean, both of them desperately wanted the title. And, you know, this, I don't know whether or not to call it a rivalry. I guess a friendly rivalry, because they're in the same unit. But even before that, I mean, these two have just always have great matches, and this one landed at the third spot on my list. I thought it's like a must see match for Puro Resu fans this year.
One thing about the wrestling business is when people are friends with one another, they will go that much harder with one another because they'll still be friends afterwards. And I think this match between Congo stablemates is a prime example. They know that they will still be friends afterwards. Kind of like the New Year's show with the M's Alliance Tag Team Championship match. They'll go extra hard, but at the end of the match, they'll still be cool. Because it'll all... Yeah, it did. Because, you know, it's all for the love of the game. And they're all still on the same team. And I think this match was a prime example of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, you have to watch it if you like Japanese wrestling. Or even if you don't. So what was your number 2?
My number 2 was Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson from AEW Rampage.
Great pick.
The 30-minute time limit draw.
Broadways are back, baby.
They really are. This was a personal dream match of mine since their match in PWG in 2009. I did not expect this match to be the comedy match that the one in PWG was. Both of those matches were fantastic for very different reasons. Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, in my opinion, the two best American and Canadian pro wrestlers there are. 30 minutes of just wrestling perfection. It had a competitive feel. It told a story. And the great thing about Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson going to a 30-minute draw is that everyone knows they can do more.
Isn't that something? I mean, the match was so good, but like you said, easily you could tell, right? Like, they have more to give. Like, this is nowhere near their max output, and it just makes you salivate thinking what
Doc,
what
I'm
they
losing
could do.
you.
But not to take anything away from this. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah. You're okay.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. But yeah, not to take anything away from this match. You know, I don't just want to say, hey, this is some appetizer, even though it is that, but on its own, it was still plenty filling. They got to do some really incredible stuff. And yeah, I believe this was the Arthur Ashe showcase match. Like, and it really, like, they both brought it. And like, this was when everybody knew the real Bryan Danielson is back. You know what I mean? Like, we don't, you know, we were wondering, like, is this sort of limited guy, this guy we've seen in WWE, who could still bring it, still have the occasional good match, but like, is that all he was? And like, no, like, the American Dragon had been in there the whole time, was still there, is still going to be there. And this was his like coming out party. And this was awesome.
For me, it was everything that I hoped for and everything I knew they could do. But because I said I know they're both capable of more, this was not my match of the year.
Yes.
Doc, I think I've hinted at it enough.
Oh, so I haven't given my number 2 quite yet. But do you want to go ahead and give your number 1? No, it's okay.
Nope. Go ahead. Okay. Give your number 2 by all means.
Okay. So, stickler for format here. My number 2, I thought for most of the year was going to be my number 1, but ended up slipping at the very end of the year. and that was way back. Wrestle Kingdom was Will Ospreay versus Kazuchika Okada. No titles on the line, just a grudge match on January 4th. And it was just incredible. Like, Okada was in the midst still of like not using his Rainmaker, of insisting on using the Cobra Clutch, the money clip, to put people away. And he had been having kind of mixed success with it, but Will Ospreay had, on the final night of the 2020 G1, turned heel and turned his back on his mentor and finally, quote unquote, beat him. I mean, he got the win, but like everyone knows, Great Okan is credited with the assist on that. So he's gotten a win over Okada, but he wants to face him in the Tokyo Dome, on Okada's sort of home floor, a lot like Tanahashi before him, right? Like, you beat Tanahashi somewhere else, Tana's like, I could still beat you in the Tokyo Dome. And this is what Okada's thinking. Like, we're going to face each other on the biggest of stages. And Will, I thought, really brought it. I mean, we've all known he's like a main event talent now for a year or two, but like, just everything in the match, like, was so incredible. And I wish I remembered more in terms of the specific spots. Like, this is one where I probably needed to rewatch again just to refresh myself on kind of the interplay and the back and forth. But I remember my emotional response to it, and I just was like, this was amazing. And nothing else on that show over the 2 nights held a candle to it. And there was great stuff. I mean, the Ibushi title matches were both fantastic, but I mean, Okada was just back to his best. Ospreay proved himself on the biggest stage, and it just was this. And Okada got the win, and it was this, just incredible chapter in their ongoing story. And the next chapter for them is going to take place in the Tokyo Dome again in a couple days, and I am extremely interested to see how that goes.
The United Empire, I think, gave New Japan a much needed breath of fresh air.
They did.
And if not for COVID, I think they would be in a much different position. And I'm hoping that turns around for them, because I think that there's a lot in New Japan that is very, very stagnant. And I've kind of hinted at this a couple of times when I've talked about New Japan recently, is that it's not just the weird booking decisions, it's just that there's a lot that's stagnant right now. I think Will Ospreay is a good example of someone who can pull New Japan out of being stagnant. I think that the United Empire being a heel stable is another good example of pulling New Japan out of being stagnant. And I'm hoping that it works out for them in the future. And I think that with Wrestle Kingdom looming, Will Ospreay versus Kazuchika Okada is another good way to go. Despite me being the leader of the Shingo Takagi fan club, I don't hate it. I don't hate them doing that match again. I'm just hoping that New Japan finds some way to keep things fresh for themselves.
It's true. Like, during the middle part of the year, United Empire was like the only thing that was really at all like non-dry about the cards they were putting out and about the company. It's not, and the whole faction, it's Cobb, it's Okan, it's TJP, but Ospreay's a huge part of it, and I totally agree with you that he could help alleviate the stagnation. I mean, the units are too stagnant. I mean, I've been watching only for about 3.5 years, but like during that time, units in other companies have like risen, fallen. New units have taken their place. Like, it's long-term unit stability is fine, but like these guys, a lot of them have been around for almost a decade, and it's, I think, contributing to that stagnation you're talking about, along with several other factors. And it's why if we had a promotion of the year award, New Japan would not be on my list this year for sure. Still had great matches.
Nope.
All right. The suspense is killing me. I have no idea what your match of the year is. I'm totally in the dark.
Well, it is the Tag Team Championship match from AEW All Out, the cage match between the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers.
Woo!
I might have planted a seed or two out there as to what it might have been, but yes, it's the cage match. Man, oh man, was this awesome. It was just so awesome. Because the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers, they are two tag teams that can keep up with each other, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And giving them the cage to do things with and allowing them to up the violence, it was a perfect storm. It was an absolute perfect storm. And they absolutely killed it. The Bucks did what they do with Matt Jackson having the Jordan sneaker with the thumbtacks, Ray Phoenix diving off of the cage, some amazing false finishes, just an absolute war. Just a war of pro wrestling, and I absolutely loved it. I think I don't like going back to rewatch things, but that might be one I go back and rewatch. The Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers in the cage.
It was so awesome. It was like, I don't know. Matches like that are usually not my thing, I guess, but this delivered in a huge way. I did the shoe with the tacks like you're talking about what a great idea. And my whole living room popped. We were watching that one as a family. And when the Lucha Bros won, everyone popped because, like, not just, oh, we love the Lucha Bros and hate the Young Bucks, but, like, if you've been watching the company from the beginning, I mean, they have history outside the company, obviously, but even if you just have been an AEW kind of watcher, like, from the company's earliest days, like, they've had history and beef with each other. And so to see this finally happen, like, in a big spot for the AEW titles, the Lucha Bros get the win after what you appropriately describe as a war was just awesome. It was so good. So good. Are you ready to hear my match of the year?
Absolutely.
All right. Going back to the arc. It's another Pro Wrestling Noah match. It is from November the 28th at Noah the Best. It is once again Katsuhiko Nakajima versus Kano, except this is the 60-minute draw. Now, a lot of people really, really like the N1 final, but didn't like this. And I throw my hands up and I ask, why? Why? It was very, very, I mean, I don't want to call it the same because the matches were different, not just in length. I mean, they went out at the N1 final and wanted to kill each other like they usually do. But this particular match only came about because after Nakajima defended his title against Masato Tanaka, Kano, who was doing guest commentary, stood up and said, "Hey, buddy, I have a dream, and my dream is to be a double champion." He has the national title at this time, right? So he says, "Nakajima, I want to be a double champion and main event the Budokan with both titles. And to fulfill my dream, I have to go through you." And so they have the match. And the match is not about destroying the other man necessarily. It is about winning the title. It is about, like, achieving Kano's dream. And it is about Nakajima preserving his own legacy and establishing that. And so I thought, like, the tone of it, like, should have been a little bit different and was, but it was still really hard hitting. And they displayed incredible toughness. And it, like the Danielson Hangman draw, I mean, it to me, did not feel its time length. I mean, it just flew by for me, and I love this style of wrestling, and I think these two guys are like the best at it. Just the incredibly hard hitting, kick heavy Puro. And I thought this was like the pinnacle of that style.
I
And
like to call this the new Noah style.
yeah, yeah, that's totally accurate, right? I mean, it's like a blend of different stuff. Um, and it is kind of a flavor all of its own, different from past Noah and different from like other Puro right now. And I think in a really, really good way. And this match is like going to live long in the memory for me. Again, it unseated this other match that I thought was a shoe-in for match of the year. And even when they had already had this other match, you know, less than 2 months prior, it still tops my list because I thought it was just that good.
That one was an outstanding match. And it was very much the new Noah style. And we talked about this privately, where I said that this was the match that really let me see what the new Noah style is. And it's not so much the old All Japan Kings Road style anymore, where it's very much something that is unique to pro wrestling Noah. And they did it just wonderfully. And this match was just a real banger, literally.
Such violence.
Yes.
I love it.
Very violent. I guess it's time for the Wrestlers of the Year.
That is correct. It is our
right.
A number one category, Wrestlers of the Year, all inclusive, where we run down our top 5 performers of the year, our top 5 athletes. Do you have any honorable mentions you want to shout out before your number 5?
I do. I have one. And this is going to be someone who I'm going to be keeping an eye on in 2022. It is someone that I think has the most complete package of anybody in women's wrestling right now. Charisma, in-ring ability, personality, and the ability to just get her name out there and be all things to all people everywhere. My honorable mention is La Mera Mera Thunder Rosa.
Very good.
And I am writing in pencil that she will be in my top 5 for 2022.
Okay.
Do you have any honorable
Very
mentions?
Good. I love La Mera Mera. My honorable mention is Zack Sabre Jr. He really, had the great stuff with Techers in the first half of the year. And for me, had such a fun and unexpectedly good G1 run. He'd had a couple down years there, especially in 19. But boy, his G1 year really propelled him up the list for me. And then like the title challenge you talked about in early November at Power Struggle, just cherry on top. Tremendous year for him.
Tell me your number 5, Doc.
My number 5 is from Stardom. It is mentioned her already, Syuri. I think that she had this incredible year, main eventing a ton of shows with Stardom's like the new kind of Stardom stalwarts like Micah, and then also against like, I guess sort of to call them the previous generation is weird because they're all younger than Syuri. Syuri's been around for a while, but like the kind of ladies that have been on top either recently or not so recently, like Momo Watanabe and Utami. Syuri had these great main events against them all. And sort of her presence on the card along with Utami and kind of the title matches and main events that both ladies have contributed to like, I think the best way to describe, like if someone was like, so what is Stardom right now? What is it like stylistically? It's kind of a blend. Some of the middle card stuff, especially around the high speed title, is a lot more fast paced and kind of sprintish. But the main event scene really reminds me of like these epic New Japan main events. Whereas like in the past, these matches would be on the shorter side, but like with Utami and Syuri, these main events are going much longer and just really feel like that kind of style, like big move, crowd reaction, big move, crowd reaction, kind of building to a crescendo with these really hot finishes. And yeah, Syuri, I thought, had a fantastic year for the company.
My number 5. Oh, man. Is Matt Cardona.
Oh my God, that's such a you pick. I love it. So good.
The guy gets it.
Yeah.
And he gets it better than almost anybody. He left Stanford. He hit the Indies. Had a brief period in AEW. Just hung out for a bit. Helped out Cody. Landed in Impact.
Yeah.
Is still going strong there. Oh, he's still there. Has a really good angle going with Moose. He's in the NWA. Just started an angle for the world title with Trevor Murdoch.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, we have to talk about his incredible run in Game Changer Wrestling.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where he really shone, for sure.
He showed he wasn't afraid to get hardcore and do a death match. He showed that he knows how to get a crowd to hate him and his wife. And just absolutely fantastic. I've always liked him. I've always felt like he had a real understanding of the audience, and especially the internet audience.
Yeah.
And he really knows how to use that. And he's just showing that right now in a way that is just, it's very validating to see Matt Cardona shining the way he is.
Very smart guy, great worker in the sort of wrestler cardy sense of the word. Really gets it, like you said. My number 4 is the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson.
Hey.
Now, yeah. So for my next few picks, I would say 4 through 2. I struggled with the ordering. They all kind of have flawed cases because you could point to chunks of the year in which that they were not doing anything or not really doing anything of note. And so I was like, initially I was like, can I put these guys on my list? Because like their whole year wasn't like solid. But then I was just like, after seeing a lot of the wrestling over the holidays, I was just like, you know what? Who cares? I'm just going to focus on peaks, and I'm going to like just say that the large majority of these guys' year was fantastic. And for Danielson, it was actually not the majority, but just really the last few months. And maybe if I had gotten to see him longer in AEW, perhaps he would be ahead of a couple of the people that are ahead of him on my list, because he's just been incredible, both as an in-ring performer, which, I mean, we knew to an extent, like I was saying earlier, like before he showed us American Dragon was still there. I think it was totally valid to wonder if American Dragon was still there, but he is. And as a character, as this heel, this arrogant, I'm a better pure wrestler than you heel guy, he's just incredible. Like just doing this like phenomenal work, like outshining just about everybody in AEW, if I'm honest. And I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like the guy is one of the best to ever do it. And even the, sliver of 2021 in which he was totally unleashed is enough for me to put him number 4 on my list.
I will talk about Danielson a little bit later. My number 4 is a guy that I think has been, maybe for the last couple of years, the most under the radar elite pro wrestler on the planet. He most recently came into prominence because Kenny Omega has said several times that he wants to wrestle this guy. And I have said for about that long that it's only a matter of time before he's on a global stage. And he most recently won the world title in his home company. And that is my number 4, El Hijo del Vikingo from Lucha Libre AAA.
We were robbed of that match.
Mega champion.
Robbed of it. So mad. Kenny, why did you have to get hurt?
Vikingo is so awesome. He is... I remember when Rey Fenix first got on people's radar, and it was like that.
Yeah.
And then when I saw Vikingo in AAA, it was like, oh my God, he's better than Rey Fenix.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the stuff he can do just defies all sense and physics and logic. Like, he does like some sort of front flip while moving his body backward, but rotating it forward that absolutely just like my brain just kind of shuts down. But also it pops, but it also shuts down when he does it because it's just ridiculous.
And when he does break out outside of Mexico, he's going to blow minds. He's going to absolutely blow minds.
I know. If COVID needs to end for many reasons, but way down on the list of reasons is to give
us our graps.
Is to get Vikingo here for like a Mania weekend.
TNT title defense.
Yes, open challenge. Do it.
Yeah.
So good. Oh my God. Yeah, he's tremendous. So like if he's under your radar, like get him on your radar. Absolutely. I did not see enough of him this year to like put him on my list, but a worthy pick. My number 3 is someone we talked about a bit already. We certainly talked about on the show, Katsuhiko Nakajima, currently GHC heavyweight champion. And I think his stuff since, the N1 final has been, well, I mean, you know what? The whole N1 tournament will count, right? All that stuff has been exemplary. So good. I mean, as a champion, to me, he's like the best champion. Like I've even put him ahead of Kenny Omega for me personally. Like as a champion, the way he carries himself and the title and just how he represents like the spirit of the company. I love everything about it. Amazing worker. Just doesn't even have to say anything to be charismatic. Just oozes charisma. Like such a deserving champion. And I hope his reign lasts a long time. But even before his title reign stuff in the N1, he had that like really great cage match with Masaki Tamiya, his partner in, I think it's the Aggression. Not Axis is him and Go Shiozaki. Aggression, I believe, is him and Kitamiya. But they had Noah's first and only cage match, and it was great. Really great stuff. I think you can find that on YouTube. I don't even think you need to use Wrestle Universe to see that, but yeah, Nakajima rules. He's number 3.
Nakajima does rule. Like his opponent at the New Year's show, Go Shiozaki, I have watched the bulk of Nakajima's career, and seeing him grow and evolve into who he is has become immensely satisfying. And he is absolutely one of the best wrestlers in the world. And it's kind of wild to see that he is fully realized in his potential. From when he was a teenager, everyone knew he had all of the potential in the world. And to see it fully realized, like he was still throwing really hard kicks at 18. And to see that fully realized now and to see him grow into what he is now, just absolutely phenomenal. Nakajima is awesome. He's really awesome.
Who's your number 2?
Did I say my number 3?
I'm not sure. Well, I guess who's your next pick?
My next pick will be another wrestler that really came along in 2021. Is someone that I have talked about and preached the good word about for many, many years. And that is the woman of 1,000 holds, Serena Deeb.
Wow, yeah, a very good pick.
She's had really good matches with everybody on the AEW roster she's been in with. She had a great series of matches with Hikaru Shida. And she's really found her character as the woman of 1,000 holds. She came back from injury and didn't lose a step. And for me, she's the woman in wrestling that I go out of my way to see any opportunity that I get.
The Professor. She got the robe, the cool robe that says the Professor of Professional Wrestling. It's fantastic. Love Serena. And we've talked about before her feud with Shida. It's great. I hope it keeps going. It's really good. My number 2 is Big Dumb Bill, Will Ospreay, New Japan Pro Wrestling. Billy. I laughed so hard it made me cough. Big Dumb Bill, Will Ospreay. I would say of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that is his own promotion. But the man has done, just such a slew of great work in a million places, right? He might have taken the top spot for me if he had not been laid off for 4 months with the neck injury. But, he has this great start of the year against Okada. And then the title match with Ibushi, even with the weird, questionable angle that we didn't have to talk about because the show didn't exist then. He had matches with Shingo. All that stuff was excellent. Then he unfortunately gets hurt. But he goes to America and, really has a great series of matches on New Japan Strong with guys like Ren Narita. He really grew into that heel character that he started last year. He's really inhabiting it. Great stuff in Rev Pro, with Ricky Knight Jr. Probably that match is probably the match that my son was the most furious at this year because they had such a long match. And then what happened? There was some kind of shenanigans in the finish where Ricky Knight got a visual pinfall over Will because the referee happened to have been pulled out of the ring, maybe by Aussie Open. I can't remember the details exactly, but Will ended up winning, and my son was just furious, which is great. I'd love to see that. The little wrestling fan heart get mad at the heels. It's so good. But no, even at the end of the year, matches like in House of Glory against Amazing Red, which you and I both really love the finish of that match. That's a sneaky match of the year, long list match. So yeah, I think he had, he's gonna be number 1 for people, for many people, and he would have been for me if not for the consistency of my number 1 guy who was doing it all year. But for 8 months of the year, Will was just untouchable.
Something tells me my number 2 pick is your number 1 pick, Doc.
Probably.
So I figure we can just talk about him together.
Let's do it.
My number 2 is Shingo Takagi.
The Dragon. Yes.
The Dragon. Yeah, I've been preaching the good word of Shingo for about a decade. And he's another guy that is fully realized and put New Japan Pro Wrestling on his big old back. And he carried that weight through this year and through the pandemic. He carried that weight. And do you want to talk about a body of work for the year?
Yeah.
his is untouched. And I will give you my reason why he's not my number one when I talk about my number one. But yes, Shingo Takagi is, I would even say he's my 1B to my other 1A.
Mm-hmm. I think that's totally fair. And you needed a big back to carry the bulbous, stagnant, bloated New Japan Pro Wrestling on his back this year. But holy cow, I mean, from the go, I mean, stuff with the Never title was amazing. Like that match with Tanahashi, which, like, again, thought that would make my match of the year list eventually, but it got bumped off. But like that match for the Never title in February or March, maybe even late January. It was earlier in the year, but was incredible. His run with the world title, like, I mean, he's brought much needed stability when guys kept getting hurt. He had a tremendous G1. Like every month, basically, of the year, you could find this great Shingo match. And like you said, he was doing it all year long. You know, all the other guys I mentioned had either time off or were creatively downcycled. But Shingo was on top. You know, even the Never title like was main eventing places because it was Tanahashi and Shingo. But he was working at or near the top the whole year, and he is delivered in ring. And it's a shame that we will never know if this run would have delivered at the box office because of COVID limitations on seating. But I think that, like, you can't find flaw with the guy as a worker and as a promo and as a character. I mean, I think he's like as close to perfect as a wrestler gets. And enjoy him while you can, I'll say, because he wrestles a brutal style, and Father Time is undefeated, as we all know, and peaks can end quickly. And Shingo is in his late 30s, and I'm not saying he's gonna fall off a cliff or anything, but I mean, we all took Tomohiro Ishii for granted, and he's someone who I think this year has shown that
not American fans.
He's lost a step.
American fans love him.
We do love him. We do. That's fair. Maybe we didn't take him for granted, but if you did, now I think the peak is over for him. You know, Tanahashi, you could argue. I mean, he's still incredible, but the peak may be over. Is over for him. And this is Shingo's peak, and so I think we got to enjoy it.
Amen. My number one, in the words of Zack Sabre Jr., going from the Japanese Dragon to the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Coupled with all of the things that have already been said, he was the only person, the only guy I gave any attention to while they were still working for Stanford. I've been completely out of that universe, except for the guy who I have said many times is my favorite pro wrestler ever. And every time that I saw him this year, he delivered. Even when he was publicly saying, my contract is just about up, and I don't think I'm going to be staying here for much longer, he still delivered.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to his talent and his professionalism. And when he left and showed up in AEW, that moment was just, it was like a fresh mountain spring washing over my wrestling fandom. It was like I had been reborn as a wrestling fan, because my faith in the American Dragon never wavered, not for a second. And that match he had with Kenny Omega, it was like, I knew all along the American Dragon was always coming back. I never lost faith in Bryan Danielson, not for a moment. And his run in AEW so far, where he's just a wrestling machine, whether he's beating up guys you like or beating up guys you don't like, it's just, he's a wrestling machine. And he's everything that I remember. And he's even said that he feels like now this is going to be the climax of his wrestling career. Like his time in Ring of Honor, he was still really young. He was only in his 20s.
Yeah.
His time in WWE was in his 30s. He only just turned 41, I believe. So now he's got all of this experience. He's healed, he's healthy, and he's still got all of this wrestling skill in his body to give. It just further confirms my faith that Bryan Danielson is everything I've always believed him to be. And it takes a lot for me to watch that other company, the Land of the Entertainers, as Eddie Kingston calls them. And he was in the WrestleMania main event when he openly talked about not wanting to be there and not really thinking he belonged there. And look at him now.
Shoehorned into it. I don't think he was part of the original plan. They were just disappointed with Edge's ratings, I think, right?
Yeah. And he said publicly he didn't really think he belonged there. But that's who he is. He's that good. He's that gifted. And as soon as he went to AEW, he was an instant main eventer. And there is no one that would deny his credibility, especially now. And once again, the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, rewards my faith in him every single time.
Not only has he got like this big list of dream matches in front of him, he had that before when he came back from injury, but he came back to a company that didn't believe in him and thought, you know what we'll do? You're super over and everybody wants to see you and is so excited. We'll do everything we can to immediately make you feel like just another guy on our roster and you'll feel a big cast. But like, he's now in a place where like people believe in him and believe in his talent and believe in him as a tippy top guy that he has shown to be everywhere he's been. And it's just so exciting. And I'm so happy for people like you who are just longtime fans of his. Like because of when I was a fan, like I missed the Ring of Honor run and have had to like cherry pick here and there matches, but like you've been ride or die with him the whole way. So this is such a nice reward for you. Super, super glad that you get this at the tail end of his career.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And Doc, I'll ask you, I've mentioned these guys whose careers I've followed for a really long time. Danielson, Shingo, Nakajima. Who would you say that is for you? Someone that you've seen very early on, that you see an upward trajectory to being something really, really great?
Boy, put me on the spot here. It's hard to say because, I've gotten sort of back into wrestling, quote unquote, in 2018. So a lot of the guys that were on top then are mostly still on top. And some of the, you've had Hangman, of course, rise to become that, but he's never felt like my guy. You know what I mean? And people that I've latched onto, it seems like they've already, like Kano or KZ or Okada, like they're already kind of have been established guys. So I guess I'd have to think who's a young wrestler that I kind of really latched onto. I'll have to think about that. I'll have to get back to you. I am kind of envious of you when you always kind of talk about people like Shiozaki and Nakajima having kind of see them grow up before your eyes because you've been a consistent fan for so long that you've gotten that chance. I am a little envious, I have to say, and but I'll have to give it some thought because there are people. I guess it
I love showing you. what I love is showing you matches from Noah
Yeah.
when Nakajima was like 18.
Babby.
I love showing you those.
So tiny. Such a tiny boy. And you look at like pictures of him and like skinny Kenta. I'm just like, God.
Yeah, yeah.
So strange. Well, I guess that brings us to the end then of our 2021 award show.
Yeah. How'd I do, Doc? How'd I do?
You were tremendous. Listen, you are too hard on yourself. You should give yourself more credit. You great lists, great commentary, the greatness we've all come to expect from DJM here on the Open Door Wrestling Pod. And if people want to argue with you about said greatness, how could they do that on Twitter?
Well, you can do that at Call Me DJM, where you can see me talking about pro wrestling. You can see me talking about Star Trek. You can see me talking about anime every now and then, but nobody cares about that from me anymore. But you can do that on Twitter at Call Me DJM. Doc, how about you? Tell us what you've got going on.
Well, I am at the Subtle Doctor over on Twitter. I got an anime podcast that is primarily anime, but we do a non-anime episode once a month also on stuff like, kung fu movies, horror movies, American animations, that kind of thing. Just some variety. You could find link to that in my Twitter bio at the Subtle Doctor. And that's all that's really active and going on at the moment, besides this glorious Open Door Wrestling podcast, which you can find on Twitter at Open Door Res Pod, WRES Pod. Same at the Gmail, opendoorrespod@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of us, let us know what you thought of our picks. Who did we snub? Who did we leave out that should have absolutely made our lists? And
nobody. We got it right.
That's right. We didn't leave anybody out. We didn't rank anybody too high. We were right about everything. So just tell us that. And go to Apple Podcasts and give us reviews. Give us the 5-star ratings that we so richly deserve. DJM, it's been a pleasure.
The pleasure is mine, Subtle Doctor, and we hope the pleasure was yours. Everybody, check out the Open Door Wrestling Podcast wherever fine podcasts can be aggravated. And until next time, I know Doc has a catchphrase.
Peace.